Why is it that you're the first one in and the last one out, yet your life hasn't moved an inch? You've been told that sweat is the secret to success, but let's be real. Hard work alone is a trap. You're swinging your axe with everything you've got, yet the tree isn't even dented. It's maddening to watch others work 6 hours while you grind for 12, only to see them pull ahead. They aren't smarter than you, yet they're living the life you're killing yourself to reach. But here is what no one tells you. There is a fundamental gap between your effort and your results that hustling will never bridge. You're exhausted, burned out, and wondering if success is just a lie for people like you. If you don't change your strategy now, you aren't just failing, you're fading away. However, there is a hidden reason why you feel so heavy, a reason that goes beyond your to-do list and touches something much deeper in your soul, something I call the stones that were never yours to carry. Today, that cycle ends. I'm going to show you a revelation that will save your career and your sanity. But before we get to the solution, you need to understand the tragic mistake of a man named Thomas, because his failure is the mirror of your current life, and what happened to him at the peak of his effort is a warning you cannot afford to ignore. Why is it that the man who spends 12 hours a day laying bricks is often the one who can never afford the house? It's a bitter pill to swallow, but the world doesn't pay for your perspiration. It pays for your results. We've been fed a lie, that if we just grind ourselves into the dirt, we'll eventually strike gold. But if sheer physical effort were the secret to wealth, every donkey in the village would be a millionaire by now. From the time we're kids, we are taught that working harder than everyone else is the only ticket to winning. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor, thinking the bags under our eyes are some kind of luxury accessory. But look around. Is that hustle actually moving the needle? Or are you just running in place? The world is teeming with exhausted losers, while the relaxed winners look on. You've been swinging a dull axe at a massive oak tree for years, wondering why the wood hasn't split. You think it's a lack of strength, but there's a much darker reason why your blade is so blunt, and it has everything to do with the invisible weights you've picked up from others along the way. But what exactly are these weights? And why is your pride forcing you to carry them even as they break your back? To find out, we must look at the man who thought sweat was holy, and see the moment his world finally came crashing down. Let's talk about Thomas, a man who truly believes that if it doesn't hurt, it simply isn't working. He spends every waking hour hauling massive granite blocks on his back, one agonizing step at a time. To Thomas, his sweat is his currency, and he wears his calluses more proudly than a king wears a crown. Believe it or not, there are tools and rollers sitting idle nearby, but Thomas won't touch them. He calls them shortcuts for the weak. In his mind, if you aren't feeling the weight of the world on your spine, you're basically just cheating. He's convinced that his suffering is a direct deposit into the bank of future success. But while he's being hardcore, his house is barely half finished and his progress has slowed to a crawl. He thinks he's building a legacy, but he's really just building a monument to his own inefficiency. He is carrying the weight of stones that were never meant to be on a human back, just like the invisible emotional burdens you've been carrying for years, without realizing they aren't yours to bear. Thomas is about to face a crisis that no amount of grit can solve. But there's a neighbor watching him, a man who seems to be doing the impossible, building faster while doing almost nothing. What is this man seeing that Thomas is blind to? The answer lies in a simple drawing in the sand that changes everything. Enter Richard, the neighbor who seems more interested in the scenery than the actual labor at hand. While Thomas is gasping for air, Richard is sitting under the cool shade of a willow tree with a simple stick. He spends his entire morning sketching intricate patterns and geometric shapes in the soft sand. To anyone passing by, especially to Thomas, it looks like he's just playing in the dirt while the real work waits to be done. But by the afternoon, Richard isn't lifting stones. He's tinkering with a strange contraption of timber and rope, a simple crane designed to let gravity do the heavy lifting for him. He moves with a calm deliberation, tightening a knot here or adjusting a pulley there without a hint of rush. He isn't fighting the earth. He's inviting the laws of physics to be his silent, high-performing business partners. Thomas looks over the fence and just shakes his head, thinking his neighbor has lost his marbles. In Thomas's world, if you aren't red-faced and trembling, you're just a dreamer avoiding the real work. He views Richard's crane as a lazy man's toy. It's funny how the person working the hardest is often the most critical of the person who is actually thinking the most. But here's the kicker. Richard's walls are rising twice as fast as Thomas's, and they are perfectly aligned. He finishes his day with clean clothes and plenty of energy left for his family. Richard has discovered the leverage of the soul, a secret that allows him to build without breaking. But what happens when the environment turns hostile? There is a hidden flaw in Richard's crane that even he hasn't seen yet. Or is there? You're about to see what happens when grit meets a deadline it can't beat. A sudden royal decree hits the village like a lightning bolt, demanding all construction be finished before the winter rains. Thomas panics. He feels the suffocating weight of the deadline pressing down on his already stiff and aching shoulders. His solution? The only one he knows. To bite the bullet and squeeze even more agony out of his exhausted frame. He is like a captain trying to outrun a storm by rowing harder, never noticing the massive hole in the bottom of the boat. In a fit of desperation, he decides to carry 2 granite blocks at once. His face turns a terrifying shade of crimson as he forces his buckling legs to take just one more agonizing step. He is completely ignoring the red flags his body is waving, convinced that sheer grit can override the laws of physics. He is the ultimate martyr, thinking that if he just wants it bad enough, his bones will somehow become as strong as steel. But the human body isn't a machine. Halfway to the wall, Thomas's left knee gives out with a sickening crack. He crashes into the mud, and a jagged stone tumbles forward, pinning his foot against the frozen earth. The very hustle he touted as his strength has now physically broken him. He is stuck in the dirt, paralyzed by his own effort, while the dark clouds of winter begin to blot out the sun. His system of muscle has failed him at the exact moment he needed it most, leaving his dreams in the gutter. But as Thomas lies there, defeated and broken, he realizes that the stone pinning him down isn't just made of granite. It's made of every extra responsibility he took on to prove his worth. Is it possible to lift a mountain when you can't even lift your own foot? The answer lies in a truth so simple, it almost feels like a betrayal of everything he ever believed. Thomas sits there in the cold mud, nursing a foot that feels like it's been through a meat grinder. It's a tough spot to be in, watching your life's work stall out while your neighbor cruises right past you. He's finally starting to see that his blood, sweat, and tears strategy hasn't yielded much besides the blood and the tears. It's funny how we stick to our guns even when the gun is pointed straight at our own foot, isn't it? Just a few yards away, Richard is operating that wooden pulley with the nonchalance of a man pouring a cup of tea. A massive block of granite rises into the air, defying gravity as if it were nothing more than a bundle of feathers. Richard isn't even breathing hard, yet he's accomplishing in minutes what took Thomas an entire backbreaking afternoon. In this moment of absolute stillness, Thomas feels the heavy weight of his own pride finally begin to crack and crumble. He realizes that all that hustle was just a mask for his refusal to stop and actually think. He has been swinging a dull axe with all his might, too busy to notice that the blade was turned the wrong way. With a voice cracked by defeat, he calls Richard over. "I have broken my body for this wall, and yet mine is low while your tower touches the canopy." He looks up at the crane with awe and resentment. "Tell me the truth," Thomas whispers. "Am I cursed, or have I just been blind to the world this whole time?" Richard's answer isn't what Thomas expects. It isn't about physics or wood. It's about a choice Richard made months ago that Thomas was too proud to even consider. A choice that you are likely making every single morning. Richard walks over, not with pity, but with the calm confidence of a man who knows a secret you don't. He gestures toward the massive wooden crane, its ropes taut and ready to perform another minor miracle. "You think you're building a sanctuary, Thomas, but you've actually just been moving heavy rocks from point A to point B." Most people spend their lives doing the same thing, relentlessly pushing boulders uphill without ever asking if there's a better way. Richard reveals that while Thomas was busy proving his toughness, he was investing his time into a machine that would eventually pay him back. This is the sharp axe philosophy, taking the time to prepare the tool so the labor becomes an afterthought. Pointing at Thomas's bandaged leg, he says, "You're using your own spine as the primary lever, but I've decided to let these hemp fibers take the strain instead. A blunt mind will always demand a strong back, forcing the body to compensate for what the brain refuses to calculate." The revelation hits Thomas like a cold splash of water. He finally sees that he has been fighting the universe instead of harnessing it. He was so proud of his muscle that he never realized his spine was breaking under the weight of stones that weren't even part of his dream. Just like you, who are carrying the expectations and traumas of everyone around you as if they were your own. But understanding the concept of leverage is only the beginning. Richard tells him that there are 3 specific laws that make this crane work. Laws that can turn a broken man into a master builder overnight. If you don't know the second law, you will continue to build a cage for yourself, even with the best tools in the world. Do you want to know what's keeping your crane from lifting? Richard starts by breaking down the first rule. You've got to stop being the engine and start being the engineer. Think of it like an irrigation system instead of carrying buckets of water every day. If you're the only one doing the heavy lifting, you haven't built a business or a life. You've just built yourself a very fancy cage. Next is the blueprint rule. 80% of the victory is won in the measuring, not the lifting. Most folks are so eager to start swinging that they don't even check if they're hitting the right tree. Precision saves more energy than passion ever could. Finally, there is strategic rest. If Richard doesn't oil those ropes, they'll fray and break, bringing the whole system down on his head. Your mind is the same. Without rest, you'll miss the tiny cracks that lead to total collapse. Thomas is listening with his mouth wide open, finally seeing that his exhaustion was really just a massive lack of strategy. He realized that wealth is not a reward for the most tired person, but for the one who builds the best bridge. But as Richard finished explaining these laws, he lowered his voice. These principles will move granite, Thomas, but they won't move the soul. There is one specific, invisible stone that most men never drop. A stone so heavy, it can snap even the strongest hemp rope. If you don't learn how to identify the burdens that aren't yours, even the best crane will eventually crush you. Thomas stared at his broken leg, wondering, is that the stone that broke me? The answer to that question is exactly what changed Thomas from a laborer into a legend. While his foot is propped up and healing, Thomas finally stops trying to work in the traditional, painful sense. He spends his days soaking up the math of pulleys and weight distribution from Richard. It's a shock to his system, realizing that his brain is a far more powerful muscle than his biceps ever were. He's finally putting down the dull axe and spending his downtime at the grindstone, preparing for a whole new game. The moment he can walk again, Thomas does something the old, stubborn version of himself would have called cowardly. He sells his massive, heavy-duty sleds, those instruments of torture, and invests in a sturdy team of oxen and a high-grade winch. He stops asking, "How much can I carry?" and starts asking, "How can I move this without touching it?" Instead of wrestling with stones, he builds ramps and levers that make granite feel like it's floating. Thomas is no longer a slave to the clock because he knows that 1 hour of planning is worth 10 hours of mindless dragging. He's finally playing for the winning team, and for the first time, he isn't the one bleeding. The system is doing the work for him. But the neighbors aren't just scratching their heads at his tools. They are stunned by his face. Thomas looks 10 years younger. There's a secret lightness in his spirit that Richard helped him unlock, a way to identify which granite blocks in his life were actually his to carry, and which ones belonged to the village's expectations. But wait until you see the tower he built. It shouldn't be physically possible for a man who just recovered from a broken leg. The secret to how he finished 40% more than planned is the exact roadmap I've laid out for you. By the time the first flowers of spring began to peek through the thaw, the results were absolutely undeniable. Thomas hadn't just finished his house. He had actually managed to build 40% more than his original, ambitious plan. While his old self would have been a broken heap of sore muscles, he stood tall with a smile on his face. It's the difference between a man who fights the current and one who builds a sail to catch the wind. For the first time in his life, Thomas wasn't waking up with a back that felt like a collection of rusted hinges. He had successfully traded his physical agony for mental agility, and the market of reality was paying him a massive dividend. His hands were no longer bloodied and raw, but steady and clean, holding a compass instead of a heavy, blunt mallet. Thomas had undergone a total metamorphosis, shifting from a common laborer to a respected and sought-after master builder. He finally grasped the ultimate truth. Wealth isn't built with heavy stones, but with the invisible systems that move them. He looked at his completed tower, standing tall and true, and realized he still had the energy to enjoy the view. He had stopped being the mule and started being the architect, but as he looked down from his tower, he noticed something chilling. Most people in the valley were still struggling in the mud, carrying the exact same invisible stones that almost killed him. Thomas realized that his crane was only half the solution. The other half was a secret he found buried in the blueprint of the soul, a secret about when saying no to a stone is the only way to say yes to your life. Do you know which stones in your life are actually yours, and which ones are just anchors designed to drown you? It's a curious thing to see folks who are genuinely proud of how bone-tired they are. They wear their burnout like a designer suit, but honestly, it's a total fashion disaster. When you work until your eyes bleed and your bank account stays stagnant, you've missed the plot. Success isn't a trophy for the most miserable. It's a prize for the most strategic mind in the room. If you're feeling completely drained and still haven't moved the needle, you're just another Thomas. You aren't a hustler. You're simply a builder who forgot to build a crane.
It's a tough truth, but swinging a dull axe harder won't make the tree fall any faster. You must stop mistaking the frantic sound of struggle for the steady rhythm of actual progress. Identify just one task being done by hand this week that could be automated or handed off to a system. It's time to stop being the engine and start being the engineer of your own legacy.
But here's the reality. Most people try to build their crane alone and end up crushed under the weight of their own good intentions. They try to let go of the weight, but they don't know which stones are theirs and which ones belong to their past, their boss, or their broken relationships. You've seen the power of the sharp axe. But do you have the specific blueprint to stop carrying the stones that are killing you? Because there is a hidden manual, a master guide that Thomas used to ensure he would never break his leg or his spirit ever again. Look at your hands right now. Are they calloused from real, meaningful progress, or just from a stubborn refusal to stop and think? The most dangerous lie you've ever believed is that your value is tied to the depth of your physical and emotional exhaustion. But as you've seen through the eyes of Thomas, carrying the world on your spine isn't an act of heroism. It's a recipe for collapse. Many of the stories you hear here aren't just stories. They reflect the invisible weight you may be carrying every day. Just like Thomas, who was pinned under a stone he didn't need to carry, you might be paralyzed by responsibilities and expectations that belong to others. If you're tired of holding pain, responsibility, and guilt that were never yours, I created a specialized system to help you drop that load. I call it the ebook, The Weight of Stones That Are Not Yours. This isn't just a book. It is the blueprint Richard used to build a tower while others drowned in the mud. It's for those who want to let go, set boundaries, and finally live with the lightness of a master builder. But because I know that a sharp mind needs specific tools, when you get your copy today, I'm including 2 essential building blocks for your new life. Bonus 1, learning to let go. This is your manual for the strategic rest Richard talked about. It teaches you how to oil your ropes so your mind never snaps under pressure. Bonus 2, when saying no is an act of self-love. This is the final secret. It's the guide to identifying the stones that aren't yours before they ever touch your back. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. Until next time, remember, don't let your friends drown in the mud of mindless effort while you are busy rising toward the canopy. Stop being the engine and start being the engineer. Put down the heavy stone, step back from the wall, and finally take a look at the blueprint for your freedom.